this thing apparently this book sold like 12 million copies, and I haven't read the book obviously, so I can't make the judgment. This is supposed to be one of the best selling books of all time. I never heard of this damn thing until Taylor Swift brought it up.
Yep, yeah.
I think she spawned this out of thin air.
I think so.
I never heard of this damn thing. I don't even remember that. This is a distinctly titled thing where the Crawdads Sing. I go grocery shopping and stuff, and I look at the book and movie section every time I go to the store. I don't recall ever seeing this thing. I gotta believe Taylor Swift spawned this thing because your boy never heard of it for selling 12 million copies, and I never heard anybody bring it up. How about you? Did you hear about it before Taylor Swift brought it up?
Not at all, and I have a number of friends that like reading novels, fiction novels, stuff like Crawdads. I would think. I really do think the Taylor Swift bump. Because Taylor Swift she's like Oprah in that she can command, she's a personality in and of herself. She has her own orbit and she can just command literal legions of followers, particularly teens. And now that it's been so long now, they have purchasing power. They're our age. On top of the teens, she's still recruiting into her army. But it's very powerful. But other than that, I mean, credit to Owens, the author. She's been writing memoirs since 1984, and actually now just brief glance at her Wikipedia, like she's a little controversial for her stance on poachers, which apparently that might be where the issue, the controversy there lies. But this is her first novel, so it is surprising that she would get that much press and that much attention for this movie and this book. So I honestly do have to believe that it's the Swift factor.
Yeah, I think that absolutely plays a role into it. And let me just say, it sounds backhanded, but it kind of is. I honestly would have rather listened to that Taylor Swift song for 2 hours than watch this thing. That song, Carolina, is awesome. I listened to it before I watched the movie, and I really liked it. And then everybody left really early in my theater. I sat the entire end credits just to hear that song again.
Does it play twice? At the end, I know.
It plays at the end. I think a portion of it plays in the beginning, or at least the instrumental or something.
Did people leave? Wait, so people left as soon as they heard that song?
Well, I had like 10 people in my theater. Almost everybody was cleared out in like the first 2 minutes of the credits rolling, which I thought was kind of shocking.
People paid and then, hold on, maybe were they part of one group?
No, it was a lot of different groups. It was a lot of couples.
So they paid that money and left?
Well, once the end credits.
Oh, the end credits. I'm sorry.
The end
I was like,
credits,
what?
The end
the
credits.
Starting no, the end credits. Okay.
No, but I was surprised though, because I'm like, this is like one of the main draws of the movie is this Taylor Swift song. Like I at least want to hear it again. I love that song Carolina though. And it's funny. Everything I've heard, I don't want to stand too hard because I admittedly haven't listened to a ton of her music. Everything I've pretty much heard from Taylor Swift, I thoroughly like, especially a lot of the new stuff. I thoroughly admire her artistry and her songwriting. I really like that short film. We reviewed her short film All Too Well.
Yeah.
I really like that. I liked a lot of her folklore album recently. And this Carolina song is a damn banger, a haunting banger, but a banger no less. With that being said, I sum up where the Crawdads Sing like this in my opening line of my review. I said, if you handed Nicholas Sparks a manuscript written by William Faulkner, the great Southern Gothic artist William Faulkner, if you handed Nicholas Sparks a Faulkner manuscript and told Nicholas Sparks, you got to revise this, dude. You got to make some changes to this, you'd end up with Where the Crawdads Sing. This movie lacks texture. This movie lacks, I think, a lot of personality. And I'm going to pass it off to you after I say this. The thing that really shocks me is that for how intimate it is around this girl, Kaya, the marsh girl, played by Daisy Edgar-Jones, this innocent young girl who's growing up in the marshlands, who gets framed for murder of this college quarterback who she was seeing, while being abandoned by her family and living in North Carolina. The shocking thing to me is that how much time this movie spends revolving around Kaya and her plight and her life. And I feel like it misses the real core of the story, or the interesting part of the story, about her being on trial and what is later revealed, and the tough situation she is in with her back against the wall against the jury, and the stigma and her attitude about, like, they're going to judge me either way. You kind of know what I'm saying. I don't want to give too much away, but it undercuts that and the abuse elements of it all, and it just makes it into something that feels very trite and sanitized. What say you?
Do you remember the movie The Free State of Jones, or just Free State of Jones, starring Matthew McConaughey?
McConaughey movie, yeah, vaguely, but I did see it.
So in that movie, the majority of it is obviously Matthew McConaughey's character during the Civil War, how he established the Free State of Jones, and it's a lot of racism, fighting, it just of the time Civil War. But it's intercut with the 50s, I think, jump forward. I think it starts and then cuts intermittently and then ends with Matthew McConaughey's character's descendant. And it's about like interracial marriage or something like that.
Yeah, it's all coming back to me the way you say it now.
Yeah. And, on paper, I like that story a lot. But the problem is that the jump forwards to the 50s, 1950s, or wherever, it really hurts the pace of the movie, which is already a kind of a dragging drama. Honestly, now that I just kind of superficially made that comparison just now, but now that I think about it, like the problems are kind of shared. The problem is that Crawdads doesn't have guns and the Civil War going for it, where it's like, okay, we have some action going here.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah. There are some social injustices. There is sexual assault in Crawdads, and there is racism in Free State of Jones. So there are some deep-seated issues. Don't get me wrong, but man, it just drags. And I'm all for a slow movie. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for a slower-paced movie, which honestly could have matched with the Southern drawl of the Pawn Stars, the Cajun Pawn Stars, level
that I
talk
referenced.
I'm all for that, but unfortunately, because this movie is riddled like buckshot riddled, with cliches up and down. Like when the drunk abusive dad comes out of the shack, just like waddling, slapping people left and right. It's like, Jesus Christ. Okay, that's a cliche. Don't get me wrong. It obviously happens, but like, dude, what a massive cliche. And then on top of that, the trial is also a huge cliche. You've got, I love, Michael Strathern,
David Strathairn.
David Strathairn.
David Strathairn. He's so good.
I love him.
He's really good here too.
He's good here.
He's got the best scene in the movie in the closing argument.
For sure. But unfortunately, well, here's the thing. For me, like his acting is good, but unfortunately, again, it's all just this. Like every time I come back, I'm like, I could be watching To Kill a Mockingbird right now. I could be watching, something a little more compelling than this. And you're right. It's just very disjointed. Might be too harsh of a word. It just lays really flat, and it's almost like the movie mistakes flatness for brevity. And it feels like a bad romance novel has made it to the silver screen. And I obviously have not read the book. Maybe the book is really good. I can't pass judgment on it. But the translation here isn't all that great. I should say that. I went a little harsh on it at first. And it's not a horrible movie or even a really bad movie by any means. And there are some things I will praise here, but there are some the sex scenes. Jesus Christ!
Well, the sex scenes are awful.
Awful, and I'm not a prude. I'm all for, hey, if you
they suck. I'm clearly not a prude. Yeah. They're horrible. I
am neither a prude nor am I like, oh yeah, we want like Pornhub scenes in this movie. That justifies. No.
I could have done with just really steamy makeout scenes, but don't even do the sex.
But like they last
or cut to them under the
45 seconds too long, and I'm being a little, I be specific there.
They are the most sanitized sex scenes on the planet.
Dude, when you do like close-ups of like a hand grasping a hip, right? It's like, okay, I thought we'd stop this in the 90s. Like, come on, man. That's almost as bad as the sex scene from, I don't know, Enemy at the Gates. It's just like, it's bad. And it's
Nah.
consistency. It's a consistent, role of bad cliche after bad cliche like that really drags this movie down. And it's like, if you had told, if I didn't know this was a movie and you had told me after watching the movie that this was a book, then it's like, damn, I would not want to read that book, you know?
For sure. I totally get what you mean. You know what I will praise this movie for? Because, it's not really, I keep calling it, and I almost want to go back and amend my review. It's technically a drama. It's not all a romance movie. Romance is certainly an element to it at a couple different points. It plays like a romance
Right.
a lot. Like it's
With the
got
love
the
triangle,
aesthetic,
especially.
the aesthetic of a romance, but it's not explicitly a romance. Having said that, though, and this is, I don't know why I do this to myself, but I watch a lot of these like Nicholas Sparks or Sparks adjacent type movies because they're usually fairly popular. And so I've seen like Fault in Our Stars, 5 Feet Apart, all these types of movies. I will say the one thing I will praise this movie for is that at least it does not make dying of a rare illness look like a no makeup day. I will give it that. I will give it that. But having said that, and I get kind of lip from people sometimes when I harp on this, but like this is another reason I can't really get behind these stories. And like I can suspend disbelief to a point. But it just so happens that this girl that lives in the dilapidated house in the marshlands is the sexiest thing within city limits. Like she's gorgeous. Even when she has to fend for herself, she's gorgeous. Like,
Yeah,
and
Marsh Girl. Okay, don't tell me you'd hit that. Like every single dude would want that. Like,
look, they're all looking at it like that was the best part. That quarterback,
other.
played by Harris Dickinson, when he's like interacting with her, and the guys are giving him crap. I'm like, you telling me the running back ain't gonna slide in those DMs? Like, you gotta be kidding
like,
me, man.
either two things. Like either make it so that the rest of the town isn't so obnoxiously like, you're ugly. Like no, they don't say it, but they imply it. It's like, oh, she's an other. She's a Marsh Girl. She's weird. Either do like tone that down, which you can't because of the plot. So
This
I understand
town
that.
loathes her for no reason.
And what you should have done, not to rewrite scripts here, but like what would have made that easier to accept is that make her like more disgusting, play up the the bayou, right? Yeah.
The marsh.
Thank you. This is not Louisiana, actually. This is the Carolinas. Carolina.
It's Carolina.
Yeah,
it's
Carolina.
shot in Louisiana. Fun fact, but it's the North Carolina marshlands. Yeah. That's where it's set.
Or make, and they did a good job of this when she was a kid, but when she was an adult, she becomes this beautiful wallflower.
She becomes Daisy Edgar-Jones.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, who does a good job? I want to say, for what she's given, she does a good job.
I like her
acting wise. If only the script she was given wasn't riddled with cliches. Just, like the meet cute here is like, Jesus Christ. Okay, they're gonna exchange feathers. They're gonna fall in love. Oh, they're gonna kiss when there's a hurricane of leaves. Like, Jesus Christ. All right, whatever. But like. Play up, that she is still a Marsh Girl, because I thought she like abandoned being a Marsh Girl early on, like in the middle of the movie. She does later, which makes sense. That's fine. That's growth. But like, dude, she's in like pretty dresses all the time. Clean hair is,
Yeah, her hair is friggin' perfect.
Come on.
She can't even afford food, and she can afford conditioner? Come on. This is the shit I can't buy in these movies. Like, this is the stuff that just infuriates me. And you know what the other crazy part is? There is never, and that other kid, that guy Tate, that Taylor John Smith, that Tate or whatever his name is, to the other character, her crush initially, they never, ever, ever have a speck of dirt on them. Like, never. Okay. Not a speck of dirt. Not a hole in their shirt.
The love triangle is supposed to be a contrast. It's like, oh yeah, childhood friend, later lover Tate, very blue collar, down to earth guy, contrasts with the college prep, or not college prep, but like the rich
jock,
preppy,
the quarterback.
Is he a quarterback? I don't even know.
He's a quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. And it's but like you compare like attitude, you can see the difference, but like aesthetically, like the hair is perfect on both of them. Like what?
No, it's mind blowing in that way. So this is why I said in the beginning, this is a movie that just like a lot of these movies, it's not as bad as that Pure Flix. I'm sorry, Pinnacle Peak. It's not as bad as that Pinnacle Peak movie at the beginning of the year, Redeeming Love. That thing was hot trash. I'll talk about that in January when we give our worst list. I got a rant coming for that one. But it's not as bad as that, because that movie is like harmful in like a puritanical messaging way that is worse than this. But this movie lacks texture. It just lacks texture. It lacks the sort of lived-in qualities that usually make these dramas and mysteries so compelling. It doesn't feel lived in. It feels like a lot of people playing cosplay for a lot of archetypal roles. Mm-hmm. That's what, like, nothing. I don't think there's any real bad acting going on over here. I don't think there's any real. I don't think it's Oscar-worthy acting by any means. But I think everybody proves to be pretty competent.
Shout out to Harris Dickinson for being a dick on camera. By being the asshole quarterback, that he had the smugness of it. So that's actually that's probably the best performance, honestly.
Yeah, he was a prick. I give him credit, man. No, he was good. He was good for what he did. I also have to admit too, I am a little biased, but I did interview that Bill Kelly who plays one of the cops in the opening scene of the movie. I did interview him on the radio. He's good too. He's a real good, like typical Stern guy.
You can't see this, but his Wikipedia, Harris Dickinson, his Wikipedia
I'll pull it
photo kind of looks like a dick too. Just like this kind of blank stare, dead behind the eyes, kind of.
Almost looks like he's English too. I didn't realize
they're all English, I think.
You know, he did. I was just gonna say he looks like he's never seen a camera in his life in that photo.
We're being really hard on this movie. It's not that horrible. It's just honestly boring, and
yeah, that's really a good way to put it too. And you know, it's kind of strange. Like I can see some similarities too. The movie was written. Everybody's talking about Reese Witherspoon as the producer, which I get because she's huge and everything. Cool. But like, cool. Like, I'm just like, when you're a producer, you're kind of seen but not heard, even though you have a lot of input. Clearly, yeah. I don't think about you. I don't think about Reese Witherspoon watching this movie. I think about Reese without her spoon. Nooch. Anyway, I love making that joke. It's terrible.